He sent her $50,000 for rent. I sent 2 screenshots to the tax office.
And he went silent.
I'm standing in our kitchen with my phone in one hand and a damp dish towel in the other, like that's going to ground me somehow, and I can actually hear the tap dripping because I forgot to turn it off properly. The sunlight is coming through the blinds in those thin stripes that make everything look calmer than it is. My heart is doing this stupid, fast flutter that makes my throat feel tight. The banking app is still open. I can see it like it's burned into my retinas, the transfer amount, the date, the little note line that says rent, and the recipient name that I've never seen on any of our bills, any of our leases, any of our normal life. I read it again and again because my brain keeps trying to turn it into something reasonable.
$50,000. For rent. Like we're renting a penthouse on the moon.
Like it's just normal.
My fingers feel numb. I try to swallow and it doesn't go down cleanly.
And I keep glancing at the hallway as if he's about to walk in and catch me holding this truth like a knife. It was a Tuesday night when I found it, which matters only because Tuesdays are nothing nights.
Not anniversary nights. Not holiday nights.
Tuesday is when you reheat leftovers and talk about the grocery list and maybe watch half an episode of something you'll forget by morning. We'd been together for 7 years, married for 4, and we'd settled into that routine that feels safe until you realize it's also the perfect cover for anything. My husband, Ryan, is the kind of man who looks reliable. That's part of what drew me in, honestly.
He's neat. He's organized. He uses calendar reminders. He pays bills early. He folds towels like a hotel.
He's the one who tells people, if I say I'll do it, I'll do it. He owns a small building and maintenance business, not huge, but enough employees and invoices and subcontractors that money is constantly moving around in ways I don't always track line by line. And I didn't track it, because I trusted him.
I thought that was the point of marriage. You don't audit the person you sleep next to. You build.
That Tuesday, he'd come home late, smelling like aftershave and warm air conditioning from his truck. He kissed my forehead, did the how was your day thing, and then said he needed to send a few payments before bed.
Normal for him.
He sat at the dining table with his laptop, shoulders slightly hunched in that focused way, and I brought him a glass of water like a wife does, like a teammate.
He didn't look up when he said thanks. He kept tapping away.
I remember feeling this tiny sting, not anger, just that little loneliness of being in the same room as someone who isn't really there. He went to bed before I did, and his phone stayed on the charger in the living room, which was also normal. He'd started leaving it there lately, actually, because he said he was trying to sleep better and stop doom scrolling.
It made him sound disciplined. It made him sound like he was improving himself. I liked that. I felt proud of him in this stupid way. I didn't pick up his phone to snoop. I need to say that clearly because I know how people get. I wasn't hunting. I was cleaning up the living room, moving the charger cable so I could vacuum, and his screen lit up with a notification. It wasn't even a message. It was a banking alert, one of those transaction completed ones. And it flashed long enough for me to see the amount. $50,000.
My brain did that instant recalculation thing, like maybe I read it wrong, maybe it's $50, maybe there's a decimal I missed.
But there wasn't. It was 50,000.
And then it disappeared, and the room went quiet in that way that happens when your body decides something is wrong.
I stood there holding his phone like it was hot. I could have put it down. I could have walked away.
But something in me, some part of me that was tired of being the last person to know the reality of my own life, opened it.
His passcode was our anniversary. He'd never changed it.
That detail makes me feel stupid in a very specific way. The banking app didn't require Face ID because he'd just been in it. It opened right up, like it was inviting me in. The transactions sat at the top of the list, bright and fresh, like a bruise. Recipient, S. Hanley. Reference, rent. Account, a personal savings account that I knew existed, the one he said was for tax buffers and equipment upgrades.
Amount, $50,000. I stood there for a long time, scrolling up and down, like it might change if I looked away and back again. I clicked into it.
There was a little note field, and he'd typed rent himself.
He hadn't just selected a preset.
He had written it like a label, like a justification.
Like a joke. My hands started shaking so hard I had to sit down on the couch. I could hear him snoring down the hallway. Calm, steady snoring. The sound of a man who believed his world was intact. I did the thing everyone says you should do. I looked for context before I exploded. I scrolled back through past transactions.
There were other transfers to that same recipient name. Not $50,000, but still, $2,500 here, $3,000 there, sometimes with rent, sometimes with nothing. And then, buried 2 months ago, there was a transfer labeled bond.
$10,000. Bond. I felt my face go cold. My brain started trying to build a story that wasn't betrayal.
Maybe it was a property deposit. Maybe he was helping a cousin. Maybe it was some business thing with a supplier, just marked weirdly. But then the recipient name, S. Hanley, kept sitting there like a nail you can't stop pressing your tongue against. I switched apps and went to his messages, and this is where I hesitate even now because it's the part that feels like crossing a line.
But I was already past lines. He'd moved the ground under our marriage without telling me. I wasn't crossing anything. I was trying to find my footing.
The message thread with S wasn't saved as a contact.
Just a number.
The last message was from him, sent earlier that night. Sent.
Same as last time.
Don't be late with the receipt.
Receipt. I stared at that word until my eyes burned. Then I scrolled up. There were months of messages.
Not romantic, not the way movies make it look.
That's what messed with me most. It wasn't hearts and pet names. It was logistics.
It was I'll be there at 6:30. It was use the side entrance. It was make sure the neighbor doesn't see. It was don't call me after 9. And then, mixed in like a poison you only notice once you've already swallowed it, there were little slivers of intimacy. You look good today. Miss you. You're worth it.
Worth it. Like I was an expense.
I kept scrolling until I hit the message that made my stomach actually flip, like my body tried to eject reality. Rent will come through. Keep your mouth shut about the ABN. I'm not paying tax on this twice.
ABN. I live in Australia. I know what an ABN is.
I know what it means when someone is talking about an ABN in the same breath as keep your mouth shut.
I went back to the banking transaction. I took a screenshot. Then I went back to that message.
I took another screenshot. 2 screenshots. My hands were shaking, my throat was closing, and I could feel tears gathering but not falling, like my body didn't want to give me the relief of crying yet because we weren't safe yet. I put his phone down, carefully, like I could reset the night by placing it back exactly where it was. I went to the bathroom and locked the door and sat on the floor with my back against the tub, holding my own phone now like it was the only real thing.
I didn't wake him up. I didn't storm in.
Not because I'm noble.
Because I knew Ryan. He's smooth. He's quick. He can talk you into confusion.
He can make you feel like you're overreacting even when you're staring at evidence. And I was half terrified that if I confronted him in the dark, with my voice shaking and my face wet, he'd steer the conversation into some foggy place where I'd end up apologizing for snooping and he'd end up hurt that I didn't trust him.
So I waited.
The next morning, he kissed me goodbye and said he had a few site visits, and he asked if I could grab milk on my way home because we were out.
Milk.
That's the detail that still makes me want to laugh and throw up at the same time. A man can send $50,000 to a woman and still remember we need milk. The second he left, I opened my laptop and started digging like my life depended on it, because it kind of did. S. Hanley wasn't enough. I tried Hanley on Facebook.
Too many.
I tried the phone number in a reverse lookup. Nothing obvious. I searched his email on our shared computer. Yes, we shared a computer, which now feels like a joke, and I found a forwarded email from a property manager, lease agreement attached.
It wasn't addressed to me.
It was addressed to Sienna Hanley.
Sienna. There she was.
Not an S.
A whole person.
I opened the PDF and my hands went cold again. It was a lease for a 1-bedroom apartment in a suburb not far from where he worked. The tenant name, Sienna Hanley. The emergency contact field was blank. The rent, $2,500 a month. The bond, $10,000. The start date, 8 months ago. 8 months. I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to connect the dots to my life. 8 months ago, I'd started a new year with a new class at school. I'd been exhausted. Ryan had been busy.
He'd been working late more often.
He'd been showering the second he came home, saying he felt gross from job sites. I remember feeling grateful he cared about hygiene. I remember thinking, at least he's not one of those guys who comes home and collapses on the couch in dusty clothes. 8 months ago was also when he started insisting we should keep finances separate for tax reasons.
That was his phrase. Tax reasons. He made it sound smart. He made it sound like adulthood.
He said he'd handle the business accounts and I could keep mine for personal stuff, and we'd both contribute to the joint for household bills.
I didn't fight him because I didn't want to be controlling.
I didn't want to be one of those wives.
I wanted to be supportive.
God, I hate how easily supportive becomes blind.
I printed the lease. I printed the bank transaction history. I printed the message screenshots.
My printer jammed twice, and both times I nearly lost it, not because the printer mattered, but because it felt like the universe was adding tiny obstacles while my life was falling apart. I want to skip some details here because it becomes a blur of me opening drawers and realizing how many places a person can hide things in a home you share. I found a second phone in the back of his sock drawer, not hidden well, just placed behind the winter socks we barely use.
It was off. No SIM. Like an object he could deny had any meaning. I found a hotel key card in his work bag.
I found a receipt for a jewelry store, a bracelet, that I'd never seen. And then I found the part that made my skin crawl, not because it was romantic, but because it was bureaucratic.
An invoice template.
On his laptop, in a folder labeled rental, there were invoices from Hanley Consulting with an ABN at the top. The invoices were for office rental consulting space.
Amount, $2,500. Some months $3,000.
Every month, neatly, like a business expense. Like he was paying himself a justification. This is where things went wrong in a deeper way.
It wasn't just that he was cheating.
It was that he was building a paper trail to make the cheating tax deductible.
He was not just betraying me emotionally. He was laundering the betrayal through his business like it was clever. I sat at the kitchen table with that open and I felt something shift in me. Not strength exactly.
More like a deadening clarity.
Like a part of me stopped hoping for a misunderstanding.
I called him. He answered on the second ring, cheerful. Hey babe, everything okay?
I stared at the lease on the table. I stared at Sienna's name. I felt my voice come out too calm.
Who's Sienna Hanley? There was a pause, short, but real. A pause where I could hear him decide which version of himself to be. What? He said, like I'd asked something random. Ryan, I said, and I hated the way my voice shook on his name, like my body still wanted him to be safe. Who is Sienna Hanley?
He laughed once, quick and fake. Why are you asking me that? I saw the transfers, I said. The rent. The bond.
The $50,000.
Silence. Then his voice lowered.
You went through my banking. I almost smiled at how predictable it was.
The pivot.
The outrage at my reaction instead of his action.
Answer the question, I said. Another pause.
She's someone I help, he said finally. It's complicated. Is she your girlfriend?
I asked, and the word tasted like metal in my mouth.
No, he snapped too fast. Don't be ridiculous.
I exhaled, slow.
Then why do you have her lease agreement on your email?
I asked.
Why are you paying her rent?
My voice cracked on rent, and I hated that it did. Stop, he said, sharp.
Not on the phone. What, you want me to wait until you get home so you can look me in the eye and lie better?
I shot back, and my heart started pounding again.
I could feel heat rushing to my face.
Lower your voice, he hissed.
I'm at a site.
Good, I said.
Because I want you to feel uncomfortable. Then he said something that, honestly, is the line that ended my marriage in my head.
He didn't say sorry. He didn't say please.
He said, you don't understand the business side. As if the problem was my ignorance. As if my betrayal could be fixed by a spreadsheet lesson. Okay, I said quietly, and my calm scared even me. Explain the business side of sending her $50,000 for rent.
He didn't answer.
I found the invoices, I continued.
Hanley Consulting. ABN on top.
Looks like you're paying office rent to a woman you also texting don't call me after 9.
His breath came out harsh.
You're twisting it.
Am I? I asked.
Because I'm looking at your words. Listen, he said, voice tightening. You're going to blow up everything.
That was the tell.
Not you'll blow up us. Everything.
His business. His image. His control.
Here's what's going to happen, I said, and my hands were shaking but my voice stayed steady. You're going to come home and you're going to tell me the truth.
I can't leave right now, he said quickly. Then I'll do what I need to do right now, I replied.
What does that mean? He demanded, and there was a flicker of fear.
Not guilt. Fear.
I looked down at the 2 screenshots on my phone, the ones I'd sent to myself already.
I thought about the ABN. The invoices.
The way he'd tried to make his affair into a deductible expense. I felt something ugly rise in me, not revenge for the sake of revenge, but a refusal to be the only person who pays for his choices. It means I'm not keeping your secrets, I said.
Then I hung up.
I sat there for 10 minutes staring at nothing, trying to decide what kind of person I was going to be next. The version of me from yesterday would have begged him. The version of me from yesterday would have said, "Please choose me." But that version of me didn't know her husband was willing to use government paperwork to fund his double life. I called my best friend, Talia, and she answered with, "Hey, what's up?" like it was a normal Wednesday. I said, "I think Ryan is cheating and committing tax fraud," and there was a silence on the other end so long I thought the call dropped. "Okay," Talia said finally, voice careful.
"Where are you?"
"At home." "Are you safe?" "Yes," I said, and then my voice cracked.
"I don't know what I'm doing." "Tell me what happened," she said. So I told her. I told her about the transfer, the lease, the invoices. I told her the way he sounded irritated, not ashamed. I told her I felt like a fool. I told her I wanted to throw every plate in our kitchen at the wall and then apologize for making a mess. Talia listened, and then she said, quietly, "You know what's scary? He didn't just cheat. He built a system." "Yes," I whispered. "That's what it feels like." "What do you want to do?" she asked. I stared at the screenshots again. 2 little images that suddenly felt like power.
"I want him to stop," I said. "I want him to understand he doesn't get to do this and walk away clean."
Talia exhaled.
"Okay," she said. "Then document everything. And don't confront him alone if you think he'll get nasty." "I don't think he'll hit me," I said, and even saying it made me feel weird, like I was justifying. "But he'll twist things."
"Yeah," she said.
"That kind is dangerous too." "I'm going to be careful with what I say next because I'm not giving advice, I'm telling you what I did, in the way a person tells a messy story on the internet because they need to breathe. I didn't march into an office like some superhero. I didn't have a dramatic speech prepared. I was shaking. I was nauseous. I was angry in this quiet, concentrated way. I went online and found the tax office tip-off form. I stared at it for a long time, like clicking submit would make me a different person. I kept thinking, this will be the moment you can't undo. Then I thought, he already did the thing I can't undo. He already changed our marriage without asking. So I filled it out. I put his business name. I put what I knew. I attached the 2 screenshots, the one with the message about the ABN and not paying tax twice, and the one with the transaction labeled rent for $50,000. I didn't write some huge essay. I didn't need to. The screenshot said enough. I clicked submit. My finger hovered, then pressed down. And then I sat there with my hands in my lap and waited for the guilt to drown me. It didn't. What I felt was quiet. Not peace. More like the silence after you've slammed a door in a house that's been drafty for years. The air still moves, but at least the door is shut. Ryan texted me 10 minutes later. "We need to talk. Now." I didn't answer. He called. I didn't answer. He called again. I didn't answer. Then he sent, "What did you do?" I stared at that message, and my stomach tightened. He knew. He didn't know exactly what, but he could feel the shift. He could feel that I wasn't playing the supportive wife role anymore. I waited another hour. I wanted him to sit in that uncertainty. I wanted him to feel, for once, what it's like to have the ground move under your feet with no warning. When he finally came home, it was earlier than he said he could. Funny how quickly a man can rearrange his schedule when his control is threatened. He slammed the front door harder than necessary. I was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, the printed lease and invoices laid out like exhibits. I'd changed out of my work clothes into leggings and a hoodie because I needed comfort, and I hated that I looked like the softer person in the room by default. He stood in the doorway, chest rising and falling. His face was flushed. His eyes flicked over the papers on the table, and for a moment he looked like a kid caught cheating on a test, except this test was our marriage. "Are you out of your mind?" he said, voice low and shaking with anger. I looked at him steadily. "That depends," I said. "Are you going to tell me the truth?" He scoffed. "The truth? You invaded my privacy." "There it is," I said softly. "That's where you want to start." "You went through my phone," he snapped. "You went through my laptop." You sent $50,000 to another woman, I said. My voice trembled slightly, but I held his gaze. So yes, I looked.
His jaw tightened.
It's not what you think.
I almost laughed.
That line, I said, is exhausted. He stepped closer to the table, pointed at the lease. This, he said, is business.
No, I said.
This is Sienna Hanley's apartment.
His nostrils flared.
You don't understand how this works. I leaned forward, palms on the table. Then explain it, I said. Explain why your business includes telling her not to call you after 9. He opened his mouth, then closed it. His eyes moved. Calculation. Okay, he said finally, lowering his voice like he was trying to regain control. Sienna is someone I met through work. A client? I asked.
He hesitated too long.
A contact, he said. And you're paying her rent because... I pushed.
He exhaled hard and ran a hand through his hair.
It's a complicated arrangement.
I stared at him.
Say it, I said quietly.
He looked away.
I can't believe you're doing this, he muttered. Say it, I repeated. His eyes flicked back to mine, and for the first time, I saw something like shame. Not enough, but something. She needed help, he said. She was going to lose her place. And you decided the best way to help was to move her into an apartment you pay for, I said, voice flat, and then lie to me about it for 8 months. He snapped. I didn't lie. I gestured at the papers.
This is a lie, I said.
Every month.
Every invoice.
Every transfer.
His hands clenched.
I was going to tell you.
When?
I asked. After you finished paying off her life.
He didn't answer.
Instead he reached for the lease and tried to gather it up, like if he removed the paper the reality would fold with it. I put my hand down on top of it, stopping him. Don't, I said.
He froze, eyes flashing.
You have no idea what you've just done, he hissed.
I felt my stomach turn.
What I've done, I said slowly, is refuse to be complicit.
His face changed. The anger sharpened. Did you report me? He asked. I didn't answer right away. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me flinch.
I held his gaze and said, I sent 2 screenshots to the tax office. Ryan went very, very still.
I mean it.
His entire body locked like someone hit pause. The color drained from his face in a way I didn't think was possible that fast. His mouth opened slightly, then closed. His eyes flicked down, then up, like he was trying to decide if I was bluffing. Then he said, Horse, you did what? I nodded once.
2 screenshots, I repeated.
The one where you tell her to keep her mouth shut about the ABN. And the one where you send her $50,000 labeled rent.
His lips parted. He tried to speak. Nothing came out for a moment.
And then, quietly, like his anger had turned into pure panic, he said, Why would you do that? And here's the part one didn't expect. I didn't feel guilty.
I didn't feel triumphant either. I felt tired. Bone tired.
Like I'd been holding something heavy for years and finally set it down. Because you were using me, I said.
Not just cheating. Not just lying.
You were using our life, our house, your family man image, our shared bank accounts, as cover while you funneled money to her and tried to write it off like office rent.
He swallowed hard.
I wasn't trying to write it off, he said, too quickly.
I tapped the invoice template.
Then what's this?
I asked. He stared at it. His throat bobbed. His eyes darted.
It's a template, he said weakly. It's for
your excuse, I said. For your accountant.
For anyone who looks. You built a paper trail. Ryan's breathing got faster. He sat down in the chair across from me like his legs suddenly didn't trust him. His hands went to his face, rubbing his forehead hard. You've ruined everything, he whispered.
I tilted my head slightly.
Interesting, I said, voice quiet. Not I'm sorry.
Not I messed up.
Just you ruined everything.
He looked up, eyes sharp. Because you did, he snapped. You can't just do that. You don't know what they'll do.
You don't know how serious. Oh, I know it's serious, I cut in. That's why I did it.
He stared at me like he didn't recognize me.
And maybe he didn't. Maybe he'd married a version of me he thought would always be easy to manage. The supportive, trusting, slightly naive wife who didn't ask for receipts.
His voice lowered. "Delete it," he said. I blinked.
"I can't," I said. "It's submitted." "You can call," he insisted, leaning forward. "You can retract." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You really think that's how consequences work?"
I asked. His jaw clenched.
"You're doing this to punish me." "No," I said, and my voice shook now because this was the center of it. "I'm doing this because you put me in a position where I was either quiet or complicit. And I refuse to be either." He looked away, breathing hard. "You're overreacting," he muttered automatically, like it was a reflex. Something in me snapped, not explosively, but cleanly.
"Okay," I said.
"Then you won't mind me telling your parents, your employees, and our friends exactly why I left."
His head whipped back. "Don't," he hissed.
"There it is," I said softly. "Now you care about people knowing." He sat back, shoulders slumping slightly. For a moment, he looked less like an angry husband and more like a man realizing his tricks weren't working. "What do you want?" he asked, voice tight. I stared at him and felt this strange grief, because a part of me still saw the man I married. The man who once brought me soup when I was sick, who held my hand in hospital waiting rooms, who cried when we got our first dog. But that man was now sitting across from me, panicking about the tax office, and it made my chest hurt in a way I can't fully explain.
"I want the truth," I said.
"All of it."
He swallowed. His eyes shifted to the side like he was watching his own options shrink. "Fine," he said.
"Sienna isn't just a contact."
I waited.
My hands were clenched in my lap so hard my nails bit into my skin. He started, then stopped, jaw working. "She's someone I've been seeing."
There it was.
Said like a confession and a negotiation at the same time.
My throat tightened.
"For 8 months?"
I asked. He looked down.
"Yes." "And the 50,000?
I asked. My voice came out thin. He exhaled.
"She wanted to move," he said, and the way he said it, like it was a reasonable request, made my stomach turn.
She was stressed.
Her lease was ending. She didn't have enough savings.
And I.
"You paid," I finished.
He nodded once.
"It was a one-time thing," he said quickly. "She needed security."
"It was."
"You sent it as rent," I cut in.
"Not help."
"Not loan. Rent."
He flinched.
"I didn't want it flagged," he admitted, and that honesty felt like a slap. Banks flag weird transfers. If it's labeled rent, it's normal.
"Normal?" I stared at him.
"So you labeled your affair normal," I said quietly.
He ran a hand over his face.
"I didn't want you to find out," he whispered.
"And the ABN?" I asked, tapping the invoice again.
"What was that?"
He hesitated.
"She has an ABN," he admitted. "She said she could invoice me for consulting so it." He stopped when he saw my face. "So it looked like a business expense," I said.
He didn't deny it.
He just sat there, silent, like the shame was finally too obvious to talk around.
The silence between us felt heavy. Not dramatic. Just heavy. Like a wet blanket thrown over the life we'd built.
Then he said, "Small. I didn't mean for it to get so far."
I stared at him. "But you did it anyway," I said.
"Every month."
"You did it anyway." He looked up, eyes watery now.
"I was lonely," he said, and I almost laughed again because the audacity of that word in our kitchen was unbelievable. I had been lonely too. I had been lonely in a marriage where my husband worked late and came home tired and distracted. But I didn't build a second life and bill it as office rent. "This explanation doesn't really hold up," I said, voice trembling, "because loneliness doesn't make you create invoices. Loneliness doesn't make you tell her to keep her mouth shut about an ABN. That's not loneliness, Ryan. That's planning."
He flinched like I'd hit him.
"I didn't think you'd ever," he started, then stopped. "Find out." I finished.
He nodded.
I sat back, and the chair creaked softly. The sound felt too normal. The air in the kitchen felt too normal. And yet my life had just been split in half.
I stood up slowly. "I'm leaving," I said. His head snapped up. "No," he said quickly.
"Don't be stupid."
I blinked.
"Stupid," I repeated softly. He stood too, hands out like he was trying to calm a frightened animal. I didn't mean, he said, then corrected himself. I just mean don't make a rash decision. This isn't rash, I said. This is overdue.
He stepped closer.
We can fix this, he pleaded.
We can go to counseling.
I'll stop. I'll cut her off.
I'll.
You didn't stop when you still had me, I said, voice cracking. Why would I believe you'll stop now that you've lost control? His face twisted, anger flashing again.
Because I'm telling you, he snapped.
And that was the moment I realized something that made me feel sick. He still thought his words were the currency here. He still thought if he said the right thing, I would fold.
I'm not debating this, I said quietly.
I'm leaving. He grabbed my wrist lightly when I turned, not hard, but enough to stop me. I froze, and the old fear rose, not of being hurt, but of being trapped in conversation, trapped in his reality. Let go, I said, and my voice was low. He hesitated, then released me like he knew he'd gone a fraction too far.
I walked to the bedroom and pulled a suitcase out. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unzip it. I threw clothes in without folding.
I grabbed my passport, my birth certificate, my jewelry box.
The practical things. The things I could not replace easily.
Ryan followed me, talking quickly now, words tumbling.
You're ruining us, he kept saying.
You're going to destroy my business.
Think about what you're doing.
You're not thinking. I turned on him in the doorway, suitcase half-packed. I have been thinking for 8 months without knowing I needed to, I said. You were thinking for both of us. He went silent at that, jaw tightening.
I took a breath.
Do you know what the most humiliating part is? I asked, and my voice shook with tears now. It's not even the sex. It's that you turned it into paperwork. You turned your affair into invoices. You made it a line item. You made me an accessory to your cover story. Ryan's eyes flicked away. I zipped the suitcase and hauled it into the hallway. My arms felt weak, like I'd run a marathon. Ryan stood there, blocked the front door with his body like he could physically prevent consequences.
Move, I said. He didn't.
I said move, I repeated, and my voice went sharp. He looked at me, and for a second, I saw pure resentment. Not heartbreak. Resentment that his life wasn't staying neat. This will ruin me, he said, voice tight. I stared at him. You ruined you, I said. I just stopped cleaning up behind you. He flinched. Then he stepped aside, slowly, like he'd finally understood he couldn't force me back into the role. I left. I stayed with my sister for a week. Then I rented a small place on my own, nothing fancy, but mine. I cried in the shower. I cried in the car. I cried while buying toothpaste because it hit me that I was buying toothpaste as a single person. Grief is like that. It sneaks up in stupid places. Ryan tried everything after that. Apologies. Gifts. Anger. He sent me long texts about how I was overreacting. He begged me not to tell anyone. He asked me to think of the employees, which made me laugh bitterly because he hadn't thought of me while he was typing rent into a transfer field. And then, about 3 weeks later, something happened that still makes my stomach twist. He went silent. No texts. No calls. No angry messages. Nothing. At first it felt like relief. Then it felt like dread, because silence from Ryan wasn't peace. Silence meant strategy. My sister said, maybe he's finally giving you space. But I knew him. The man who couldn't sit with discomfort doesn't suddenly become respectful. Then I got a call from his accountant. Not directly, from a number I didn't recognize, and when I answered, the woman on the line said, careful and professional. Hi, is this Claire? And hearing my name in that tone made my stomach drop because it was the tone of someone stepping around a mess. Yes, I said. This is Amanda, she said. I'm calling regarding Ryan's business accounts. There are some compliance questions that have arisen, and he asked me to contact you to clarify a few things. Compliance questions. My throat went dry. Why would you contact me? I asked. There was a pause. Because, she said, choosing her words, your name appears on several documents and authorizations. I'm trying to understand whether certain transactions were made with your knowledge. I sat down hard on the edge of my bed. No, I said. They were not. Amanda exhaled softly. Okay, she said. Thank you. And then she said something that was both validating and deeply uncomfortable. Some of the invoices, they are not consistent. The ABN doesn't align with the stated services. It looks like an attempt to categorize personal transfers.
I swallowed. Yeah, I said quietly.
That's what it is.
Amanda didn't say much after that. Just thanked me and ended the call.
But when I hung up, my whole body was shaking again, because suddenly it wasn't just my marriage imploding, it was the structure of his life getting questioned by people with actual authority. And even though he deserved consequences, it was still terrifying to watch a person's world collapse in real time, especially someone you once loved. Especially someone whose collapse could splash onto you if you weren't careful.
Ryan's silence made sense after that. He wasn't choosing peace. He was dealing with fallout.
A week later, he showed up at my sister's house without warning. I wasn't there, thank God, but my sister told me he looked wrecked.
Pale. Unshaven. Like he'd been sleeping in his clothes.
He begged her to tell me to call him, and when she refused, he said, "She's trying to destroy me." My sister told him, calmly,
"No, Ryan. You did that." He left without another word.
I never got a clear answer about what happened with the tax office after my submission.
And I know people will ask.
That's part of why I'm writing this, because it's not a neat story with a bow. I don't have access to their process, and honestly, I didn't want to.
I didn't report him to watch the fireworks.
I reported him because he put me in a position where my silence would feel like participation.
But I did get small signs. Ryan sold one of his work vehicles. He let 2 subcontractors go. He stopped taking site meetings late at night. He stopped posting proud business updates online.
He moved out of our house quietly and started renting a small unit. And yes, I noticed the irony. And no, it didn't make me feel better. Sienna, as far as I know, disappeared from his life the moment money became risky.
That's what it looked like from the outside.
One day she was an expense worth hiding. The next she was a liability worth dropping. That part doesn't sit right with me for a reason I don't know how to fully articulate. Not because I feel sorry for her. I don't.
She participated.
She accepted rent.
She was fine with secrecy.
But there's something unsettling about realizing you were married to someone who could treat people like line items.
Me. Her.
Employees.
Anyone.
Everything becomes a transaction. And once you see that, you can't unsee it.
The divorce is ongoing. It's slow.
It's paperwork and waiting and lawyers and moments where you want to scream because you're arguing over furniture while your heart is still bleeding. Ryan tried to paint me as vindictive. He told mutual friends I went crazy. Some believed him, because people like simple stories, and woman snaps is easier than man quietly builds a double life and finances it through creative accounting.
But I have receipts.
I have the lease.
I have the transfer history.
And I have 2 screenshots that I didn't even want to take, but I took them because some part of me knew my word wouldn't be enough against his charm. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, I would have noticed sooner, I need you to understand something. Ryan didn't cheat like a sloppy teenager. He cheated like a man who practices control.
He didn't come home with lipstick on his collar. He came home with clean hands and tidy lies.
He didn't forget birthdays.
He remembered milk.
He made the betrayal blend into routine so well that I doubted my own instincts when they whispered. And here's the real takeaway, not a moral, not a summary, just the thing I keep returning to when the grief hits. The most dangerous lies aren't the dramatic ones. They are the administrative ones. The ones that look like rent. The ones that hide inside invoices and calendar reminders and tax reasons.
Because those lies don't feel emotional.
They feel normal. They make you think you're safe, because your house is still clean and your bills are still paid and your husband still kisses your forehead. Until the day you realize you've been living next to someone who can steal your reality and file it under a category that makes him feel smart. Thanks for watching. If you've ever caught something like this, a payment, a receipt, a harmless transaction that turned into a whole secret life, share your story in the comments. I read them. And I promise, it helps to know you're not the only one who had to learn that love can be betrayed in spreadsheets as easily as it can be betrayed in bed.